Have you ever looked into a woman's eyes and felt like you were staring into an abyss of contradictions? A mysterious realm where love and destruction, nurturing and devouring, creation and chaos all exist simultaneously? Today, you're about to discover the hidden archetypal forces Carl Jung uncovered that silently drive women's deepest psychological patterns. Forces so powerful yet so invisible that they've been shaping your relationships without you even knowing it. For centuries, men have been blindly navigating the labyrinth of feminine psychology, equipped with nothing but social cliches and superficial understanding. This ignorance has cost you dearly: failed relationships, emotional manipulation, psychological castration, and the profound confusion that comes when a woman who once seemed loving suddenly reveals a face you don't recognize. The pain you feel isn't just yours, it's ancestral. Generations of men have suffered because they were never taught to see beyond the maternal, nurturing facade of femininity. They never learned that behind every smile lies what Jung called the female shadow. Not a defect, but a fundamental aspect of feminine psychology that isn't interested in caring, pleasing, or loving, but in controlling, manipulating, and sometimes even destroying. But today, everything changes. Through Jung's revolutionary insights into the female psyche, you'll finally understand the archetypal forces driving the women in your life. This isn't about demonizing women, it's about seeing them completely, in their full psychological complexity. And in doing so, you'll discover something even more profound about yourself. When you think of feminine archetypes, your mind likely jumps to the mother, nurturing, protective, life-giving, or perhaps the lover, sensual, passionate, desiring. But Jung's genius was in recognizing that the feminine psyche contains a constellation of archetypes far more complex and, at times, threatening. Have you ever experienced a woman's sudden emotional shift that left you bewildered? Perhaps she was warm and receptive one moment, then cold and rejecting the next. This isn't madness or manipulation. It's the rotation of archetypal energies within her unconscious mind. The witch, the controlling queen, the passive maiden, and the devouring shadow. Each woman embodies these archetypes, either consciously or unconsciously. They operate as autonomous internal forces, shaping her attitudes, desires, and fears in ways she herself may not fully comprehend. Think about it. When a woman in your life becomes inexplicably critical, methodically dismantling your confidence with remarks disguised as helpful suggestions, you're not facing a personal attack. You're encountering the queen archetype, the aspect of feminine consciousness that seeks order, control, and perfection. When she withdraws emotionally after you've disappointed her expectations, leaving you to decipher her silence, that's not childish punishment. It's the maiden archetype retreating into passive resistance, the only power available when direct confrontation feels unsafe. But here's where Jung's insights become truly transformative for you. The woman you desire, fear, or idealize is always a reflection of your own unconscious feminine aspect, what Jung called the Anima. Your Anima is your soul image of the feminine, formed through your relationship with your mother and shaped by cultural and collective unconscious patterns. When you project this internal image onto actual women, you're not seeing them as they are. You're seeing your own soul reflected back at you. This is why you might repeatedly attract women who eventually control or emotionally castrate you. It's not bad luck. It's your unconscious seeking to bring your anima's shadow aspects into consciousness through external relationships. When you idealize a woman as pure, perfect, and salvational, you're blinding yourself to the inevitable emergence of her devouring aspect, the part that will unconsciously sense your idealization and feel compelled to shatter it. This pattern isn't her fault, nor is it yours. It's an archetypal dance as old as humanity itself, designed to force psychological growth through confrontation with the shadow. Have you ever felt your autonomy gradually eroding in a relationship? Your decisions subtly undermined, your independence slowly constricted under the guise of love and concern. This is the devouring aspect of the feminine shadow at work, not because women are malicious, but because archetypal energies seek expression through available channels. In relationships, this often manifests as a cycle of emotional dependency, disguised as love. You become trapped in patterns of seeking approval, avoiding conflict, and sacrificing your authentic expression to maintain peace. You might even mistake this emotional castration for maturity or compromise. Jung observed that men who remain unconscious of these dynamics are doomed to repeat them. Your fear of confronting the female shadow doesn't protect you, it guarantees your continued subjugation to it. Each time you dismiss a woman's darker aspects as, "she's just being emotional," or, "women are complicated," you're refusing the very insight that could liberate you. Now, I'm going to reveal something so profound about the feminine shadow that it may fundamentally disturb your current understanding of all your relationships. This is the insight Jung discovered that has been systematically ignored for centuries, not because it's false, but because it's too threatening to our collective illusions about gender, love, and the very foundation of human connection. The most powerful manifestation of the feminine shadow isn't in obvious aggression or manipulation. It's in the subtle moments where control is exerted through apparent vulnerability. This is the aspect of feminine psychology that has remained hidden in plain sight, cloaked in cultural narratives about women's natural emotionality and need for protection. Have you ever noticed how a woman's tears can instantly transform you from an equal partner into a guilty caretaker? How her expressed disappointment can make you abandon your position faster than any logical argument? How her withdrawal of affection can send you into a spiral of self-doubt and reconciliatory behaviors that you would never engage in with a male friend or colleague? This is the devouring mother archetype, the aspect of feminine psychology that consumes masculine autonomy not through force, but through the weaponization of care and vulnerability. It operates through a simple but devastatingly effective mechanism. It activates your own wounded child, your need for maternal approval, and your deep-seated fear of abandonment. Jung recognized that this dynamic isn't personal, it's primal. Women don't consciously choose to embody this archetype. They inherit it through collective unconscious patterns and cultural conditioning that predate written history. The devouring mother exists because, throughout human evolution, indirect power was often the only power available to women. It became an evolutionary psychological adaptation, the ability to control through nurturing, to dominate through apparent submission, to achieve security through emotional manipulation. Consider those moments when a woman in your life has said, "I just need you to understand how I feel," while simultaneously rejecting every explanation you offer. This isn't communication failure. It's the shadow witch archetype seeking not understanding but submission. The endless circular conversations that leave you exhausted and confused aren't accidents. They're ancient psychological patterns designed to wear down rational defenses and establish emotional dominance. And here's the revelation that will change everything. The reason this archetype has such power over you isn't because of her strength. It's because of your unacknowledged weakness. The feminine shadow gains its power from your own shadow's desperate need to remain hidden. When you project your ideal anima onto a woman, expecting her to be consistently nurturing, emotionally stable, and selflessly supportive, you're setting up both of you for a catastrophic confrontation with reality. No woman can sustain this projection, nor should she. The pressure of carrying your idealized anima eventually forces her shadow aspects into expression, often in ways that seem shocking or betraying to you. This is why relationships that begin with intense idealization so often end in bitter disillusionment. The woman hasn't changed. Your perception has simply expanded to include what was always there, but previously denied: her complete humanity, shadow and all. And in that moment of disillusionment, when you call her crazy, unstable, or dangerous, you're actually hearing your own wounded anima screaming for integration. The fear you feel toward her is the fear you feel toward your own denied emotions, your vulnerability, and your unrecognized shadow. Jung observed that men often project their own emotional instability onto women, calling them emotional or irrational, when in fact, it is the man who cannot bear to acknowledge these qualities within himself. The woman becomes a convenient vessel for everything he rejects in his own psyche. Her emotional nature becomes the perfect excuse to avoid confronting his own emotional immaturity. What makes this dynamic so insidious is that both parties are typically unconscious participants. The woman doesn't recognize how she embodies the devouring archetype. just as you don't recognize how eagerly you offer yourself as sacrifice. You both play roles written in the collective unconscious thousands of years ago, mistaking ancient archetypal patterns for personal choices. But Jung didn't reveal these patterns to trap you in fatalism. He revealed them to offer liberation through consciousness. Once you see the archetypal dance for what it is, you can choose whether and how to participate. You can recognize when you're being emotionally devoured and set appropriate boundaries. You can identify when a woman is operating from her shadow and respond to the unconscious need beneath the behavior rather than reacting to its surface manifestation. Most importantly, you can begin to integrate your own anima, embracing your emotional nature, your vulnerability, your need for connection, rather than projecting these qualities onto the women in your life and then resenting them for embodying what you've disowned. Now that you've glimpsed the profound truth about the feminine shadow, you stand at a critical threshold in your psychological development. You can continue to see women as either angels or demons, projecting your own unintegrated anima onto them and suffering the inevitable consequences. Or you can begin the heroic journey Jung prescribed, the integration of your own feminine aspects, both light and shadow. The most frightening truth isn't about women at all. It's about you. It's about the man who refuses to see women as they truly are, instinctive, dual, symbolic, and deeply unconscious beings, just like you. Integration means reclaiming your psychological wholeness. It means recognizing that each shadowy trait you observe in women is an invitation to self-knowledge. When a woman's emotional intensity frightens you, ask yourself, what emotions am I refusing to feel? When her need for connection seems suffocating, inquire, what parts of myself am I keeping isolated? When her criticism wounds you deeply, consider, what self-judgments am I projecting onto her words? The woman in your life is both mirror and mystery. By facing her shadow, you encounter your own soul, and only then can you love with lucidity, free from projection, free from fear, free from the lies you tell yourself about what women are and what they should be. This journey toward integration isn't merely theoretical. It manifests in specific, practical changes in how you relate to women. When you notice yourself feeling controlled by a woman's emotions, instead of blaming her for being too emotional, you might ask, what is it about her emotional expression that threatens me? What am I afraid might happen if I fully acknowledged my own emotional nature? When you find yourself repeatedly attracted to women who eventually become controlling or dismissive, rather than concluding that all women are like that, you might inquire, what aspect of myself am I seeking to encounter through these relationships? What wound am I trying to heal through this repetitive pattern? The path Jung illuminated isn't about becoming immune to feminine influence. It's about transforming your relationship to it. It's about developing the capacity to distinguish between when you're responding to an actual woman and when you're reacting to your projected anima. It's about recognizing that the qualities you find most threatening in women, their emotional fluidity, their intuitive knowing, their capacity for both creation and destruction, are precisely the qualities you need to reclaim within yourself to become psychologically whole. Consider the men you know who seem most at ease with women, who neither idealize nor demonize them. These are often men who have done the inner work of anima integration. They don't need women to be perfect because they don't need women to carry disowned parts of themselves. They can appreciate feminine complexity without being threatened by it because they've acknowledged their own complexity. This journey isn't easy. It requires courage to see beyond the comforting illusion society has given you about women. It demands honesty to acknowledge the ways you've contributed to dysfunctional patterns. It asks for vulnerability, the very quality you may have been taught to suppress as part of masculine identity. But the rewards are immeasurable. Imagine relationships built on seeing and being seen completely. Imagine loving without the exhausting burden of maintaining projections. Imagine the freedom of no longer being controlled by unconscious fears and expectations. Jung's insights aren't about accusing the feminine, they're about understanding it in its magnificent totality. The feminine shadow isn't a defect to be fixed. It's a natural force to be respected and integrated, both within the women you encounter and within yourself. The ultimate paradox Jung revealed is this: only by accepting the frightening aspects of the feminine its capacity for emotional manipulation, its sometimes overwhelming intensity, its ancient connection to the destructive forces of nature? Can you free yourself from being unconsciously dominated by them? Only by seeing women clearly, shadow and all, can you love them authentically, rather than loving a projection that will inevitably collapse. And perhaps most importantly, only by reclaiming the feminine within yourself, your own capacity for emotional depth, intuitive wisdom, and creative transformation, can you become the fully individuated man Jung believed was possible, neither controlled by women nor controlling of them, but standing in his complete humanity alongside theirs. How does this understanding change your perspective on your past relationships? Can you now see patterns that were invisible to you before? What aspects of your own anima have you been projecting onto the women in your life? And what might it look like to begin reclaiming those projections? Share your personal experiences in the comments below. This journey of psychological integration isn't one you need to walk alone. Like this video if these insights have illuminated something within you. Subscribe to continue exploring these profound psychological truths, and revisit our previous videos for more layers of understanding. Remember, the greatest mystery you'll ever explore isn't the feminine psyche, it's your own soul's response to it. And in that exploration lies not just understanding of women, but the reclamation of your complete self.